Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Global Reality Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is Tuesday going into Wednesday now, the 15th into the 16th, 2011, and 12:20 a.m. Central Standard Time. Glad you could be with us. And tonight we will be getting into some news and topics of discussion, and we also will be getting into emails as well. If you'd like to send in emails tonight, during the broadcast, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. So definitely go ahead and send those in. And we'd love to... oh, it was weird. Noise gate got turned off there. Sounded like a wind tunnel for a second. But globalrealityshow@gmail.com. You can send in your emails, and I will do my best to address those during the show. We have a few here tonight, so I'll try to get into all those on the broadcast night yours as well. And you can always check out everything up at my website where this broadcast originates from. That's www.theglobalreality.com. And everybody who sent me their addresses and whatnot will be sending out your stickers this week. So look forward to getting those in the mail. And if you're out there and you want stickers sent, you can send me an email, globalrealityshow@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to fulfill as many of those as I possibly can. If I don't fulfill everybody's, please don't get your feelings hurt. But the stickers are not cheap, and I bought 100 of them. So I'm going to be doing my best to get those out to as many of our listeners as possible. So everybody that wants to have some of those, you can email me your email, globalrealityshow@gmail.com, but try and do that, or just make a like on the title of the email, make sure it just says address for stickers or something like that, so I know what it is. That way I can discern it from if it's a question or a comment coming in for the radio show. Anyway, everything else is up there at my website as well. The documentary films that we've done are up there. The Secret Right Volume 1 is up there. You can also buy copies of that as well. There is it's also free to watch up there. You have the first film we came out with in 2007, 9/11 New World Rising. That's up there, as well as my Reality of Illusion series films, mini documentaries, and a whole raft of clips from the radio show that people have cut out and put on YouTube. It's an amazing thing. I tell you what, you guys out there listening on it, it's blown me away every single day with your love and your support and just your help in what we're trying to do here. And it's amazing for me to be somebody who, it's just strange. I've never, I guess it's a weird feeling, and I've just never had this many listeners before. And it's just strange to have, there's so many people care about what you do. It's great. It's amazing thing. But if you go to like YouTube now and you type in Josh Reeves, it's stunning how many pages there are with stuff from the show up there. Not that I've made or personally put out, but that other people that you guys have made and put out and put up there of my stuff. It's insane. I mean, I would never, have the time to put together just as there are right now. And there's more coming every day. We have one person in particular that posts stuff just about every day from the shows. He's posting entire radio shows up there. as well, which is got to be damaging to the enemy. I mean, we've never been able to have, entire uncut, complete shows of the global reality up on YouTube. Now they're going up there on a regular basis almost every day. It's TGRF, I think is the name of the channel. Something like that. But some of those ones you can find, a lot of the ones that are the full show ones up there, definitely go and find that and subscribe on that, because it's another way to get the shows in their complete form. And a lot of the archive shows, the older shows, classic shows we're putting up are getting up there as well. The recently rediscovered long lost 2008 interview I had conducted with Jim Mars on the release of his book, The Rise of the Fourth Reich. That's up there. That was a really killer interview, and I thought it was lost and gone forever, and it came back out of the side hatch. So there you go. We also have the stream broadcast in 128K. Most networks offer 64K. So what's interesting is that a lot of networks charge for that, but the music sounds amazing, and I was really getting into the music tonight with before the broadcast here. We are going to be continuing to read tonight from William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. And we finished reading last night on, I think we stopped on like page 50. And it's an interesting read so far. And as it always happens, we haven't done that in a while. And we had somebody request that I read that book, and we haven't done a book reading in a while. And when we do one, I think that's why people enjoy it so much. It's just an amazing thing, because, as I'm reading it aloud to you, I'm also reading it to myself, and it's really of no consequence that you're there listening. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it like, because I'm reading it, I'm just sort of reading it, and I'm in front of a microphone. But the fact that, people are listening is not really, it doesn't really factor in. You know what I mean? So it's an amazing experience for me to be able to experience for the first time the things that I'm reading on the pages, and then relate that to you, much in the same way that I try to do my best to not read very many of these news articles all the way through before I bring them to air, because I like to read them on air, and then I want you to be able to hear my genuine reaction to it. Because I don't know, for me, I can just tell. You can always tell. When some guy's up there and he's feigning some sort of emotional response, and you're like, come on, dude, and he's just hamming it up. And most of the time, those are the fear mongers that do that. It's pre-planned and staged and everything else. But I enjoy being able to read a news article, and sometimes we get duds and we have to say, okay, that's a dud article because I didn't read it in advance and it's shite. So let's throw that out and start something else. But I really do enjoy reading these books, because, especially this one, I think this thing definitely ties in quite a bit with what we've been talking about and what we always talk about pertaining to this information, with the bloodlines and the people and the powers of control that run the world system, and really their origins and really where they come from. And it's one of those things that has been intentionally relegated to a conspiratorial fringe for years by the conspiracy movement itself. You always hear people like Alex Jones, others say, that stuff, the Anunnaki stuff or whatever, that's a distraction, and blah, blah, blah. We don't have the documents or whatever have you, but we do have the documents. We have the Sumerian clay tablets. Those are the documents, motherfucker. Put that on a t-shirt. We have the Sumerian clay tablets. Those are the documents, motherfucker. That's a good one. But seriously, now that with the information that we know about the Council for National Policy, the Jesuit order, and the priest class controllers, now we have the ability to see this from a long range filter, and we're able to look at this and go, oh, well, I think that's one of the things that I've been really coming to grips with as we've been reading this book, William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. And I think that you will as well, as you continue to listen to my reading of this. I think you'll start to understand really what I'm seeing now, especially in light of this Vatican priest class control stuff. You see now, oh man, it makes total sense now why these people like Alex Jones, totally connected to the priest class, totally connected to the religious orders at the highest levels where the real power is. And these are the guys telling us it's the bankers running everything. But not only that, the reason they've been telling us that this type of information, like we've been discussing with William Bramley's Gods of Eden, the reason they've been telling us this is a distraction, because the people that control them are the ones that control this information. They are the custodians. And one of our listeners sent me a piece of information last night. This was the same person who had tipped me off to the Caesar 3 supercomputer stuff. So you know who you are, my friend. So I tip my hat to you for always giving me little tidbits and give me little things, that you're finding in your own research. I love that. I love the fact that we have, people who are, it's like our own little intelligence network. It's been that way for a while. It's great, man. I mean, we got so many people out there ferreting out information, and, I say one thing and then they point me in the direction and say, well, hey, look at this kind of thing happened again. Listen to this. A listener sent me this last night. We got to discussing William Bramley's Gods of Eden last night. We had one of the things that they kept talking about was how the Anunnaki, the creators or whatever have you, they refer to them as the custodians. And of course, Bramley at the beginning of the book, as we read, stated, for the purposes of the rest of the reading, that those, the Anunnaki or whoever they were, they would just be called the custodians from there on out. So if you happen to catch the last several broadcasts and you heard me talking about the custodial societies, this will make a lot more sense to you. If you didn't, go back and listen to those broadcasts, and it probably will make more sense. But listen to this. This is a website for some group called Global Custodian. And if you look at their logo, the G and the C, it's very interesting. It looks like to me, it looks like if you turned it on its side flat, and we're looking at it from a flat angle where the G and C would be, where the C, would be almost like to me, I see a sigil in that. My brain and my eyes have been trained from years of looking at this, where whenever I see a sigil, I can pick a sigil out like shit that you wouldn't even think would probably be a sigil. Because after a while, after you get used to looking at these symbols for a long time, you get, it's like anything, you get a palate for it, and it almost becomes like another sense. It just, your brain just senses it immediately. You see it, you identify it, you know exactly what it is. So this group, Global Custodian, I think their website is globalcustodian.com, something like that. And it says, globalcustodian.com is the website. Excuse me, hold on. Excuse me. Globalcustodian.com is the website of Global Custodian, the leading magazine covering the international security services business, published 5 times a year by Asset International, headquartered at 1055 Washington Boulevard, Stamford, Connecticut. Global Custodian provides analysis and commentary on the latest news and events taking place in the international securities industry. Now, before I even go any farther, I pointed out this was pointed out to me by the same person who had pointed out the Caesar 3, the supercomputer thing to me, and because I was on that trail and I was sort of there, and as soon as I came to that realization, that person said, "Hey, look at this." This person didn't seem to point out that, or in any way, shape, or form imply. They didn't even say anything. They just sent the link. But I find it interesting that this person didn't in any way, shape, or form imply to me that that this was possibly connected to the Caesar 3 supercomputer. But I have to say, immediately after reading that first paragraph there, I can't help but have this instinct and this intuition that it is. This sounds like this is an algorithm. Is that what all this Holy Grail stuff is? Is that what all this, or this, Ark of the Covenant stuff? I speculated on this before, and I just keep seeing these little flashes of things. It makes me wonder if the intelligence that, the custodians or whatever they were called had when they left here, they didn't leave in the form of some massive computer that we're just now learning how to put together and use. And it's possibly assumed control. If this thing's called Global Custodian, my goodness. it'd be hard to deny with what we've been reading now with Bramley, wouldn't it? I mean, this is this is insane. Let's continue here. Founded in 1989, the original focus of the magazine was on securities processing operations. Articles that explore how shares trade and settle are held. Its editorial scope has since expanded to include fund administration, securities lendings, and financing. Prime brokerage in the infrastructure of the global securities industry, CSDs, ICSDs, payment systems, and other industry bodies and initiatives. The editorial content of the magazine is now supported by industry standard surveys that address how the performance of custodian banks, fund administrators, prime brokers, and tri-party security financing providers compare with each other and within individual markets. Global Custodian and GlobalCustodian.com are focused distribution vehicles for advertisers and sponsors wishing to reach and influence key decision makers to the custody, fund administration, central securities depository, hedge fund, prime brokerage, repo securities lendings, security financing, and collateral management industries. Now, again, without going any further, right there, that alone should bring up, again, red flags. I mean, did anybody but me just not get the word, just see the word money changers flashing behind their eyelids? I did. As I was reading that, all I could see was flashing in my eyes, money changers, money changers, money changers. You know, that's all I could see. Because I'm sitting here thinking, wow, custodians, the global custodians, and these guys are, again, influence key decision makers in the custody, fund administrations, the central securities depository, hedge fund, prime brokerage, repo, securities lending, security financing, and collateral management industry. That's a big goddamn chunk of the financial institutions of the world, isn't it, folks? Anybody else but me think that a connection to custodians and, the bloodlines and the demigods and the Anunnaki, anybody else but me think, a connection to the credit enslavement system and the monetary enslavement system and the money changers, anybody else but me think that's just too big of a coincidence to ignore? I mean, wow. So, that's, it really is an unbelievable thing. And seeing that thing about, global custodians and whatnot. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here reading this. The chat is not often always times interactive with the show. I'm not always looking in there, but here you go. I've got the website there for you. But anyway, thanks for pointing that out, my friend. I appreciate you pointing that out to me and make me aware of that. But anyway, we're going to be continuing on here tonight after we get into the day's news. We'll be continuing on with William Bramley's book. I'm looking forward to that. It's actually a lot of fun, isn't it? I've really just been looking forward to the shows because for the longest time, some of the stuff that I read or have been into reading as of late, or at least over the past year, sadly has not been. I guess that's where the research takes you, but. Sadly, a lot of the stuff that I've been reading lately has not been the kind of stuff that's very conducive for me to read on air. You know what I mean? It was kind of one of those things where, because I've done that before. I mean, I've made that mistake before. You guys have heard me. You guys have been listening for a while. I've heard that. I get halfway through a book and I just go, you know what? Fuck it. We're not even going to finish this one. This sucks. Because, if you're going to be reading something, if I'm going to be reading something, it has to be something that I can, interact with and jive with. If it's just somebody throwing a bunch of words at you with no context or anything else, it's, that's sort of the problem, I think, with a lot of the, I don't know, people who try to push hard, really hard theories, especially when you get into some of that multidimensional stuff and, different levels of, because not that any of that isn't 100% real or not that I don't believe it is or anything else, but you start getting into intangible territories. And the thing about it is, I can sit here and go on and on for 2 hours about some things in the tangible universe and the tangible real world and the world around us right now that, these goddamn brain dead truther clones and whatnot, just, they can't even wrap their minds around it. So that's the whole thing is for me is that when I read a book or I read a book on air, I think it has to be something that, we can work with our other information. I think that this one definitely does. So there you go. There's that. Let me go back to the emails here tonight. We're starting out with this and we'll get into some news. Sadly, there's not a whole hell of a lot of news. Well, I mean, there is. If you want me to get up here and talk about the earthquake all night. And again, as I stated last night, if you didn't listen to last night's show, it was a heavy hitter show last night. It was an almost 3-hour show last night. And I felt last night's show was one of those ones that everybody needs to hear. So if you didn't hear last night's show, definitely go back and check that one out. Again, I'll say I'm not. It's not that the earthquake thing and all this stuff doesn't concern me, and I did talk about it quite lengthy last night. I will, talk about it, but I mean, I know it's important. I know what it is, and I know it's for the furthering of the agenda. Again, whether they created it or whether they didn't, doesn't matter rat's ass to me, because first and foremost, they have used this to, and will continue to use this to capitalize on it. And that's the same thing I said about the Gulf oil disaster, and that's what troubles me. Because here we are, almost exactly a year later, and I'm having deja vu. Or it feels like I could be having a case of major deja vu, but luckily I'm averting that quite well by not spending a lot of time talking about this topic, and now we're reading The God's Beaten by William Bramley. That's helped a lot too. My point is this. Again, I feel like I'm entering into some sort of massive area of deja vu where, I mean, I can already feel it. It feels like I'm here. I was just here. It feels like it was just a few months ago and it was almost a year. And I feel that here I am again, and I'm talking about this, Japanese disaster. And I'm saying, I'm in a position where looking at this and I'm saying the exact same things I was saying last year about the oil spill. But again, we're pushed into talking about and focusing on the things they want to, because we've allowed ourselves in the alternative media to become just as big of slaves to the mainstream media as anybody else, myself included on that. But very few other talk show hosts and people who run websites will say that besides me. I guess that's what separates me from them. But it's a fact. We have allowed ourselves to become just as big as slaves to the mainstream media and their news cycles as people who don't know the truth about 9/11 or extraterrestrials or secret societies or anything else. You see? And again, I don't think that you can say that that isn't by design. I can't think that I just don't think that you can say that it hasn't been designed to be that way. Again, do not think for a goddamn millisecond I'm saying that I haven't been guilty of this. Well, because I have. But that's the whole thing. I'm able to point this out because I'm trying to work around that. I'm trying to again. Got to change yourself first if you want to change anything else, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to at least get this out there and and talk about it, and maybe we can get a conversation going about it. So maybe other people who feel the same way as I do might start making a decision to do their shows in a different way as well. So that's the whole thing. Is I just feel that a year before that, 2009, I was sitting here in the same exact same time of year, and what were we talking about then? The swine flu. Before that, it was the elections. But it's all, ever since I've gone on air now, almost 4 years ago, no matter whose show you listen to, whether it be mine or Lee Rogers or, Jack Blood or whoever, we're all, no matter where we stand on all these different issues, we're all still allowing ourselves to be slaves to their news cycle. And slaves to what they deem to be the important topics that we cover. And we got to start re-owning that, man. I mean, we got to start taking that back. Re-owning our content. It's kind of like, when you're a musician and stuff, you have to learn that. You have to learn that, you have to re-own your content. What I mean is, when you're a musician, oftentimes if you're playing in a band or whatever, sometimes you have a tendency to let your sound go too far one way and not enough the other, just by, you know, not because you're trying to, just happens to go that way. So sometimes you have to go back and go, okay, you know, what exactly is the core sound? Let's go back and try to find that. Kind of the same thing, you know, you kind of have to reassess and go back and say, okay, well, you know, what is the core thing that I'm going for here? You know, re-own your content, re-own what it is that defines what it is that you do. And I would much rather talk about any of these topics and everything else. I cover the news for this reason. Number one, because there are a lot of people out there who listen to this show who do seem to get a lot from it. And so, you know, you've probably noticed over the past several months, I've been my selection of news articles has been, you know, has been slimmer. You know, I've been covering less and less news. Some of the shows have been shorter because of that. But again, you know, that's another thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to get up here and beat the dead horse over and over again. You know, sometimes you have to beat that dead horse because it's relevant to what you're talking about at the time. You know, so I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I hadn't done that either. But you know, like I said, I really enjoyed some of the different stuff we've gone into, and we're going to get into some of this news tonight. But you know, I don't really think you need me to, again, go over all the finer machinations and points of what's happening with this Japanese thing. I really, well, barring a few of these stories I want to mention to you tonight, I feel like I sort of wrapped up how I really feel about it last night, which is, again, you know, I don't give a rat's ass if it was natural. I don't give a rat's ass if they made it happen with HAARP. I really don't give a fuck either way. Fact of the matter is, these motherfuckers have figured out a way, either whether they created or whether it was natural. I don't give a damn. Either way, they have figured out a way to further the agenda and capitalized on this, and they will continue to do so. And if you know that, everything else, all these other little minutia things that people try to get you, you know, to be important of. It's funny. There's that whole culture within the conspiracy research community as well. You know, people just love to bog you down in the minutia instead of looking at, oh my God, look at this. You know, people try to do that on the CMP thing. You know, they always try to say, oh, it's just a right-wing CFR or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they, you know, they try to pull down these little minutia things. And then you say something like, you know, or I'll say something like, well, I mean, you know, Dr. Edward Teller was on their board of governors. He was on the tip top of it when they first started. I mean, father of the hydrogen bomb, anybody? Not to mention their connection 7 Ways to Sunday with eugenics, the Heritage Foundation, and Pioneer Fund. Oh, it's unbelievable. So, but it's the same thing, you know, is people want to, they try to like pick out these unimportant bits that maybe, you know, maybe a loose tie or maybe something where it says, well, people just say, oh, well, you can't say it's just all guilt by association. And then they just leave it at that. Well, whether or not you're arguing about guilt by association or not is valid or isn't valid, leave that at the door, regardless of that. But that's what people try to do. They throw that up and then they think that that's supposed to just, you know, negate all of the other information you're trying to tell them. Okay, you can't say guilty by association. Okay, well, how about this? You know, and then you start picking all the things we have connected to these guys. So they've been connected to every major thing that's happened, and their ilk have for centuries. And it goes right back to the heart of the custodians and the people who seeded life on this planet. We'll talk about that more later on tonight. Love to have your emails, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Let's see what we've got here tonight before we get into the news. Let's see. Just a few random questions and thoughts. What do you know about hydrogen peroxide used as a cure-all in cancer treatment? I think I mentioned that last night. Somebody asked that in the chat room, but I guess they sent me an email as well. I don't know anything about that. Oh, yeah, I did address this last night, but I guess I didn't read all of it. Okay. Yeah, I read most of this last night. I addressed most of this last night, but there was a whole part in here. It says, yeah, I read this last night. Okay, my bad. Let me continue here. Let's see, I guess I don't have. I thought I had more. Oh, here's one. Hi, Mr. Reeves. Try to keep this short. New listener like the show. Apologize in advance for the topic you've previously covered. Is this what you would consider space-based weaponry? Things that are listed at the bottom of these articles. So the one article is scientists capture antimatter atoms in particle breakthrough. This is from November 18, 2010. I think I covered this when it happened. Scientists have captured antimatter atoms for the first time, a breakthrough that could eventually help us to understand. Well, I think that this more has to do with, and I'm not going to say this, it couldn't possibly have something to do with space-based weapons, but space-based weapons per se are not weapons that so much at this point have anything to do with time and space, so much as they have to do with satellite-based weaponry, offensive. Let me put that on there. Let me start over. Offensive satellite-based weaponry, which can range from things like the rod of God, Thor's hammer, the thing that's the gravity bomb thing they used on the moon. They can drop it, anywhere in the world, and it'll blow an entire a city, anything else up, just like a nuclear bomb will, but it leaves no nuclear radioactive fallout. There's also things like, plasma cannons, and they've got all kinds of stuff. Hell, they had Hughes 100 killer satellites up there in the early 1970s, shooting down UFOs and God knows what else. So what you can just imagine how far it's progressed. They've got. There's no telling what all they have. But what we're talking about is offensive, orbiting vehicles around the Earth that can strike anywhere on the planet within minutes, faster than anybody can deploy nuclear weapons on any country. And this was prophesied and warned about by Wernher von Braun, who said first the threat would be communism, then it would be third world crazies, terrorists, and then asteroids, and then they would try to stage an alien invasion about telling people that extraterrestrials were hostile when they were not. Well, you don't think we're heading to that, do you? So both these articles you sent me have more to do with like CERN and that whole end. Now that very well could be a part of their weapons thing as well. But I think more of what it's going to be is, they are opening stargates. They're opening stargates. They're opening wormholes. They have now admitted they have the ability to open up wormholes with CERN and put something in it and also bring something out of it. I have the director of CERN on video in my Reality of Illusion series about the Norway Spiral. I have a video clip of him in that film saying on camera that when you do an experiment, you have a set of things that are going to happen. 100%. You have a set of variables, things that exactly. Those are things you're going to look for. But then you also have a set of things that that are going to happen that you can't predict, that you don't know what they're going to be. And you won't know what those are going to be until they happen. And that's what he stated that was. He stated that they were not aware that when they fired up CERN, but they discovered that they were able to open up wormholes and put things inside of them and take things back out of them. And that's more of what these articles you sent me, sir, having to do with CERN and this antimatter stuff. That's what they're trying to do. Now, whether they're trying to get out or whether they're trying to bring things in from somewhere else, I'm not going to speculate on. I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. If I had to guess, you wanted my opinion, I would say both. But that's just me. Anyway, love to hear from you tonight. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. And love to hear from you tonight. If you've got an email question or a comment or you've got a topic, anything else of that nature, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. And I will do my best to address that for you here on the show tonight. This is the Global Reality right here. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us tonight for another late night edition of the broadcast. And thanks for staying up late with us tonight. We're going to continue on here tonight with some news, and then we're going to come back and read more from William Bramley's The Gods of Eden tonight. And that's been a great read. Hopefully some kind soul out there will amass all of those in a collection after they're done, and that'll be great. Also there at the website, theglobalreality.com, we have the chip and banner there for the bills for the month. We also have the donate button there for the films, for everything else that we're doing here. And once See Right Volume 2 is out, we're going to, I'm going to jump back into figuring out what the next piece is that I'm going to do, because I'm planning on trying to release at least 3 films this year. See Right 2 is just such a big, massive production, and it's such a big thing that I've been putting together for so long and trying to make perfect and make right and sort of make a masterpiece. I'm sort of ready to move on to some other topics and stuff that I don't have to be, as intense with it, because once this thing's done, I kind of have a template to work with for, the other things. So I'll be able to get some other things out a lot quicker. So I plan on doing a couple of more films this year. Somewhere in there, I'm taking a damn vacation though. A week off somewhere. I don't care where, a weekend or something away. I don't have to look at news and do radio, something. But till then, we soldier on here. So support our work and keep us uncensored, commercial free, and pushing forward into the future, man. I got a lot of big things planned for this year. So we're going to get after it. Let's get into some news here for you tonight on the broadcast. Man, oh man, oh man. I do want to say this. First off, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be hard to be making light of any of this, but I'm sorry. I gotta have a laugh. And I'm going to start y'all out with a laugh tonight. Here's a good laugh for you. Let me get this ready here. Jim Cramer, Mad Money Man Jim Cramer, says Japan is not a Chernobyl situation. No, it's not a Chernobyl situation. Don't worry about it. Buy stocks. That's what he's saying. Put your money in the market. And that little picture I just dropped in the chat room, if you're listening live, that right there says everything that I could possibly say on this article that is titled Jim Cramer Says Japan is Not a Chernobyl Situation. So let me drop the link to the article in there. And so now you have a match set. So read the article. And then when you wonder what Josh Reeves' response would be to that article, take a look at that picture. That really just about says it all. I mean, there's nothing. I have nothing else to add, Your Honor. Prosecution rests. You guys remember when he had that fucking psychobilly freak out or whatever it was? When his programming broke down for 30 seconds on air a year and a half or so ago. He's sitting there going off about money stuff, and he's like, yeah, the stock market's low and people are going to get into gold and it's what you do when the economy's like this. And the Queen of England, the Bavarian Illuminati, and the New World Order, they're not half bad. And then he kind of looks down at the ground did I just say that? It was one of the most bizarre moments ever caught on video or on live TV, in my opinion. I mean, just fucking bizarre. It was dude, his fucking mind programming broke down there for a minute. Because you see him, he has this look on his face did I just... He couldn't believe he just said it. He didn't say it. It was bizarre. Such a bizarre thing. I mean... they like to throw it in our faces every now and again. Oh, yeah, there's the genetic clone picture as well. They love to throw it in our faces every now and again, and they aim stuff like that towards people who are paying attention. Remember a couple of years back when they did the Alec Baldwin Super Bowl thing when they first rolled out Hulu? Remember that? And he says, people are spending too much time in front of their computers and not spending enough time in front of their TV, so we figured out how to make them watch TV on their computer. So we can turn their brains to mush because we're aliens and we're taking over the planet. I mean, and his little reptilian tail comes out. When I saw that, I didn't think it was very funny. To me, that's the kind of thing where you're like, all right, these motherfuckers are rubbing our noses and shit now, you see? Because your average person that doesn't know anything about that stuff or have any reference point for that type of information just sees that as, oh, it's funny, or look at that stupid, weird Alec Baldwin commercial. Well, they don't think anything of it. But literally, that is a perfect example of them throwing it right in our face. Because what they try to use that stuff for, it's what I call the chill effect. That's what I call it. It's the chill effect. They go for the chill effect because what they're hoping is that whoever, what they're planning on, and they've sort of strayed away from this now, which is good to see. I think they'll be back with it more and more. Again, I've probably plenty of movies coming out this year that reinforce that. But my point is, they do that because they like to use the chill factor, meaning, they're banking on the majority of people out there that have the knowledge of the type of information we talk about in this show to have gotten that from a source that was probably reinforcing that information with fear, which is, 90 to 95% of most of the shows and outlets out there. Now, they may be subtle about it, and it may be harder to pick out by the layman. But there are people and there are researchers and, people here on Coast to Coast AM and whatever else. There are people out there that are slick, man. And, they're slipping their fear mongering in and saying it in other ways that you kind of have to know what's going on to know that it's fear mongering. But just to the layperson, they may not see that. But they always like to add the chill factor in there. And the reason they do that is so that when they can reinforce through the mass media that all the things that we talk about are real, what they think that does is basically gives them more power over us by making those of us that are aware of this information cower down and say, oh, my goodness, oh, man, see how powerful they are? See this, like Jonesy says, this stuff's real, folks. Folks, this stuff is real. I'm here to tell you, folks, this stuff is real. Red alert. Get Lindsey Williams on the phone. Tell that old cunt I got to tell him what's going on with his gold. Lindsey Williams, you old cunt, get on here and tell me what's up with the oil. You Illuminati insider, motherfucker. God damn it. Wife's on my ass again. I got hemorrhoids. Anyway, but that's exactly what they do, is they like to reinforce that so that those of us that are paying attention, kind of get that, and it's just a more part of the fear enslavement system and how they use that to try and, because that's what they want. I mean, that's why they've allowed so much of this information to leak out and come out through various sources and a lot of times in their own writings. I mean, my God, I could sit here and go all night on the things that they've admitted in their own writings, from Sabrina Brzezinski to, the Anglo-American establishment, Tragedy and Hope, Carol Quigley, any of that stuff. I mean, they've been letting this stuff out of the bag for years and years and years. And now that people are starting to gain a context for it, they've initiated these different programs to try and rope people back into the perimeters that they want for understanding this type of information. So let's continue on here tonight with more of this news. A packet of white powder found at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the space shuttle launches, has tested positive for cocaine. NASA's Inspector General office has confirmed the packet contained 4.2 grams of a white powdery substance. God damn! It's about to get down in space. Hey, man. Yeah, you ever done coke? You ever done coke in space? Yeah, man. You don't even have to have a table or mirror or nothing, man. You just sprinkle that shit, dude. It just floats around, and you just put your nose on it, and you go, and you just sniff it right out of fucking space, man. It's so fucking good. You ever done it? Oh, let's go do it right now. Come on. We're not going to be launching these fucking space shuttles much longer, man. We got to do this shit while we can. Did you go through flight school and all that bullshit through the Air Force just to not be able to do coke in space? I don't think so, man. It's go time. It's go time. Let's go. Law enforcement personnel field tested the substance, which indicated a positive test for cocaine. The substance is now at an accredited crime lab for further testing. NASA has a zero-tolerance drug policy, unless you're a Nazi. Oh, wait, we didn't say that. Coming this summer, starring Tom Hanks. Cocaine in Space, the final Apollo movie. Directed by Ron Howard. Ms. Juhans declined to comment on exactly where at Kennedy Space Center the cocaine was found, and or if any employees that showed positive results in the drug test. Unbelievable. So somebody's planning on getting down on some, on little cocaine in space there. That's just, I don't know. That's funny to me. Any of you out there have AT&T as your service provider? Anybody? Well, if you do, might be time to switch to another IP provider because, man, I can't imagine being an info gatherer or someone who is, trying to gather information to further the expanse of knowledge when it comes to this type of stuff. I can't see how anybody can put up with this. Telecommunications giant AT&T said this week that it will join Comcast and other providers in a controversial business model that limits the amount of information subscribers can access and imposes penalties for overage. The move will see AT&T broadband users forced into a tiered internet that would limit accounts to a paltry 150 gigabytes a month. 150 gigs a month? Phew. Child, please. I'll run through that shit in about 3 days. Users who download too much information on AT&T's broadband network will be subject to an additional $10 fee for every 50 gigabytes. Fees of the first 3 overages will be waived. In layman's terms, if you're used to watching Netflix, playing online video games, or using your computer to share files with your friends or engage in other bandwidth-intensive activity, get ready to be slammed with additional fees. The move has some tech businesses and internet freedom advocates up in arms, calling AT&T's plan a way to force other companies into a restrictive business model. Some are also concerned that with internet users watching their bandwidth meters, usage may go down, innovation could suffer. Well, I would go back. I think that the other one, I think that was actually, oh my God, I can't believe it, an actual good bit of journalism there. That's exactly what it is. They're trying to force other companies into a restrictive business model. Look at AT&T. AT&T came from ITT Farben. AT&T is if this is coming down from AT&T, it's coming straight down directly from the Rockefellers and straight down from the priest class above that. These motherfuckers are trying to put a stranglehold on the flow of information right now as we speak. With AT&T forefronting this, it tells you right there it's coming from the globalist agenda. AT&T was ITT Farben. They're the ones that ran the copper mines down in Chile, and the one that Kissinger pulled off the op down there subsequently on September 11th. Yeah, funny how that happened. When they overthrew Salvador Allende, the Democratic elected leader, and installed Augusto Pinochet, who was a dictator. In fact, Henry Kissinger was set to be tried for war crimes on that very case. But the case was never went to trial because the day that it was set to go to trial, and this was in the newspapers, we have a clip of it in 9/11 New World Rising, 9/11 happened. I mean, that's quite a coincidence, if you're just somebody, a layperson looking at this information, I don't give a fuck who you are. You've got to say it's kind of coincidental, don't you think? Kissinger connected to this op in Chile that related to, the copper mines and control of that and, installing these puppet dictators. Happens on 9/11. His trial, years and years later for war crimes is on 9/11, and boom, he gets off. And you look at all the connections, and then they wanted this motherfucker to be on the 9/11 commission. I mean, they actually had the cojones to appoint Henry Kissinger. George W. Bush did this to being on the 9/11 commission. And of course, it didn't take long before people started saying, "Wait a second here." Yeah, well, IG Farben was also connected to ITT, which was International Telephone and Telegraph, which was what AT&T became. But yeah, IG Farben, it was all it was the copper mines in Chile in the 1970s. That was the whole case that surrounded. Of course, Poppy was running the whole show from the CIA, making sure it went on without a hitch. Let's see what else we have here tonight. Yeah, the Japanese have now abandoned the nuclear plan. They said, fuck it, we're out. U.S. is overdue for a huge Pacific quake, experts say. Yeah, so we're going to get one. We're going to get hit from both sides. They've been drilling on this forever, guys. I mean, I covered it back in 2008. I hadn't been on air even a year at that point, maybe 6-7 months. And I had covered a story here on the show about FEMA conducting drills in Ohio on the scenario of 2 natural disasters hitting the United States simultaneously. For instance, a earthquake or 2 earthquakes, or an earthquake and a hurricane, and a nuclear or biological, radiological terrorist attack. They did drills in Ohio in May of 2008 for this exact scenario, for that type of thing happening. Isn't it interesting now that they are saying the U.S. is overdue for the huge Pacific quake? And then, of course, we had the story last night. We talked about, these Russian scientists are saying that we may see earthquake activity, massive earthquake activity in the New Madrid fault line area in the next 14 days. Combine this with all the chatter that's been going on about homegrown terrorism and all these other attempts we've had. I mean, we may very well see these scenarios that they were drilling on back in 2008 come to fruition. And with the background and the track record these people have with carrying out their drills, I mean, my God, look at Operation Northwoods. I mean, Operation Northwoods was drawn up by the very people that ultimately, in the end, at the highest levels, well, not the highest levels, but at the level of pulling it off on a ground level, the operation to kill President Kennedy. You had all of these guys cooked up this plan, and it came out, I guess 10 years ago, right after 9/11 or right before 9/11, that in the CIA, unbeknownst to Kennedy, had a plan to hijack commercial airliners into buildings and blame it on Cuba as an excuse to go into Cuba. So they had that, the exact operation for 9/11 laid out on paper, folks. And then it took them another 30, 40 years to execute it. So don't think for a second that just because they did a drill on a scenario like this back in 2008, now 2011, that, that was a long time ago when they did that, they wouldn't do that now. No, that's how they do this. They like to have every factor laid out and all their ducks in a row before they pull an operation off, because they never pull off any operation, whether it's created by them or whether it's something where they have had foreknowledge of it, which I think more and more what these earthquakes are. Again, as I talked about last night, people always jump on the HARP thing. Immediately, it was HARP, it was created, as if that, and then what they do is they when they say that, it negates it. It makes you, some people, they think, oh, well, the government did, it's HARP, whatever, it doesn't matter. But people still die. Again, it doesn't matter if they did it or if they didn't. I for myself lean more towards we know that they have the technology to know ahead of time when these type of things are going to happen. And we also know that they have the technology to enhance these type of natural activities, unbeknownst to the human population, to use what they describe in military terms as force multiplication technology, meaning if you have a HARP system, which can cause earthquakes, and you have foreknowledge of an earthquake happening, and you beam these electromagnetic pulse waves at the fault lines right around the time when you know there's going to be earthquake activity, you can then use force multiplication and cause that to be much worse than it would be. And then capitalize on that, as I've talked about many times, the disaster economy. If you've never heard my discussions on the disaster economy, go to YouTube and type Josh Reeves disaster economy. You should come up with that. But that's what they do. That's the new economy. They tear things down so they can rebuild them. And then who gets the contracts? Halliburton, Brown and Root, DynCorp, funny. The only people that are making money in these economies at all are these companies, the companies that control the disaster economy. I mean, my God, Halliburton got caught red-handed last year buying a company for oil cleanup like 2 weeks or a month before the oil spill happened in the Gulf. Well, that's a hell of a fucking lot of foreknowledge for Halliburton there, isn't it now? Yeah, Halliburton is so all-knowing and all-powerful, they happen to have the foresight to buy the only oil cleanup company available in the entire Houston area, the biggest one that was in Houston. They happened to buy it out 2 weeks before the oil spill happened. So I think that that's the new game. Yeah, they might launch another terrorist attack thing or something at some point. I mean, I think you'd be stupid to think they won't still use that card. But I think even more powerful than war now is this disaster economy. Because they can alleviate any and all responsibility for any of this stuff happening by just claiming it was an act of God. It was, it was nature, Mother Nature. And if you are somebody in 2011 who is naive to the fact, and it is a fact, that these people have the technological capabilities to not only control the weather, but also to create the weather and to either mitigate or exacerbate natural occurring disasters, I'm sorry. You just haven't done enough research. And that naivety is not going to get you very far in the new world we're moving into. Like it or not, we're moving into a new world. So we all have to figure out how to adapt and learn to live in this new world. And it is possible, and we can still be just as free as we are right now. But staying locked in and suckling at the teat of their old society and in the old ways of thinking is going to, well, you're just not going to make it. It's just the way it is. I mean, yes, we are going into a new world, but nobody says that it's set in stone, that the perimeters of that new world had to be set in stone and programmed by them. Now, does it? No. So don't think that all is lost and game is over or anything else just because, we're moving into a new world. That's just the way it is. But we still have the power. We still have the ability to define the perimeters of what that new world will be. So let's get it right this time, shall we? See what else we have to talk about here tonight. Let me read this article here. The Western United States is overdue for a huge earthquake and tsunami, much like the one that devastated Japan last week, and is nowhere near ready to cope with the disaster, experts say. Well, again, all the more reason why we could see this force multiplication technology. Again, plausible deniability, folks. Plausible deniability. This is a way for them to bolster economies, create new jobs out of cleaning up new areas and building new things there. It's also a way to do away with, well, I mean, my God, let's just say it. They're doing away with minority areas, especially coastal areas. That's what they've done with New Orleans, and that's what they did with Katrina, and that's what they did with the oil spill now. They're going to drive all the indigenous people and the people who lived on the little shacks and houses in those areas for God knows how long. They're going to drive them out, and then they're going to set up, they're going to put concrete and metal over those areas and set up big condos on there. I mean, there's a very racially hatred-filled aspect to this whole agenda. And definitely to this idea of this disaster economy. Most definitely. I saw it happen when they had the wildfires out in Malibu. Wait, 2007, 2008, something like that? And all the fires would just happen to be going to the houses of the people that, work in the restaurants and work in the gas stations in Malibu and, work in the bars and everything else, regular people. But, the CEO of DreamWorks, he's got guys out there with paying him $1,000 an hour to spray this foam all around his house so his house isn't touched, you see. So all the people that lived there that, weren't high class movie stars and producers and, film magnates and everything else, their houses were burning up and everybody else's were fine. So what's going to happen? Well, as soon as the fires go down, the smolders go down and they're down to the brick and mortar, conveniently, every goddamn time, they do the same thing in New Orleans. They do it every time. You can check the records. It always happens. All of a sudden, boom, your property just went through the roof. Your property value where you were living at, maybe you weren't even living there. Maybe you were renting there. Maybe you didn't even own it. Well, it just went through the roof. But, because of the current market, they can only offer you 10% of that new value or 30% of that new value. And then you take it, and then what happens? Jeffrey Clantenberg comes in and sets up his new mansion on your place. They're doing this all over. That's a big part of the disaster economy. A volatile horseshoe-shaped area known as the Pacific Ring of Fire has recently erupted with quakes in Chile, Japan, Mexico, and New Zealand, and seismologists say that it's just a matter of time before the next big one hits. Twin fault lines place the U.S. West at risk. The San Andreas Fault that scars the length of the California and the lesser-known but more potent Cascadia subduction zone off the Pacific coast. A 9.0 earthquake in this underwater fault that stretches from the northern tip of California all the way to Canada's British Columbia could simultaneously rattle major ports of cities of Vancouver, Portland, and Seattle and unleash a massive tsunami and kill thousands of people. From the geological standpoint, this earthquake occurs very regularly, said geological engineer Yumi Wang. Yumi Wang, who is geohazards team leader of the Oregon Department of Geology. With the Cascadia Fault, we have records of 41 earthquakes in the last 10,000 years with an average of 240 years apart. Our last one was 311 years ago, so we're overdue. Yeah, it seems like we're overdue for everything. We're also overdue for these motherfuckers to let us know and to tell us that they have knowledge of these cyclical things, because they do. That's where the whole end of the priest class and the controllers and the people that control religions come in. This ancient knowledge that goes back to the custodians that they have is what they're using to bring about their world order. There's just no denying it now. Now, records from the last quake in Cascadia in 1700 AD show that a tsunami that it generated killed people in Japan. And, all of this stuff. I just love how all of a sudden people are just acting like, they never could have guessed these things were going to happen. Oh, my goodness. Again, we were planted here. We were put on this planet. We weren't naturally indigenous to it. Cataclysmic changes, extinction level events, all of these things have happened on the earth many times and will happen to, but it just seems like our society is just all of a sudden like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Well, it is happening. I've been trying my best on the show for the past year to say, get ready. Get ready. I remember when me and Lee did our end of the year show in 2009. We were saying, get ready. You guys better get ready. You better get your minds ready. What's going to happen in 2010? Same thing, 2000. You better wrap your mind around it. And my goodness, look at what we've already experienced in the first 3 months of this year. We haven't got to May yet. Lord knows what's going to happen in May. I mean, if you believe what's his nuts, he'll tell you the world's going to end in May. My God, at this point, it's like, yeah, anything can happen, right? Insane, out of control. And there's just so much disinformation flying around. There's so much stuff going on, divide and conquer stuff, and people are arguing over this stuff. And do I need to get potassium iodide? Is there a radiation threat from this stuff? Is this just more fear mongering by Alex Jones, or is this a real threat? And, you got to go with your gut on this one. Go with your heart on this one. Go with what your heart and your gut tells you. Doesn't matter what I think about it. Doesn't matter what Alex Jones thinks about it. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks about it. This is a make or break situation for everybody. This is one of those test things, one of those moments, folks, we're going to encounter more and more, especially those of us who are plugged into this information now. This is a critical moment for each and every one of us. And I've already made my decision on this. I actually made my decision on this before before this all ever even happened. Intuition. But you got to make a decision, you know. Do you want to say what the hell and, spend $5 or $10 and go down to CVS or, go look online or something and get some of this stuff? I know prices are going through the roof and, or do you want to, just say, fuck it, it's probably just fear mongering and take the risk? I can't tell you what's right or wrong on that. And I wouldn't try to. I can tell you what I give you my opinion, tell you what I've done, but I would say, do not believe anybody out there, not me or anybody else on radio or TV or anywhere that tries to tell you that either yes, 100% you need to be scared, or no, 100% this is fear mongering and it's just bullshit. I say don't believe either one of those. I don't give a fuck how much information they have. Don't believe either one of those. Make a decision for yourself. Find out what you believe. And then act accordingly. It's one of those rare moments where you have a chance to do this. And it could really be something that, could determine your future. Because the fact of the matter is, it's a make or break thing. Are you going to continue to allow them or him or me or that guy over there or these people over here or this group or whatever else, the government, are you really going to continue to allow any of these things to determine what for you, what your outcome is going to be, what you're going to do? No. Don't believe the guy that's telling you it's all fear mongering, and don't believe the guy that's telling you that it's all a threat and you need to be freaked out either. What does the person inside you think? What does your gut tell you? Use your heart. Think rationally. If your rational mind, your gut tells you that it's, you think it's all bullshit, you shouldn't concern yourself with it, then do that. And believe it with every fiber in your body and go about your business, and the universe will still provide to you exactly what you need. But if you believe that, hey, better be prepared than to be fucked, then do that. And believe it and do everything in your power. But again, just don't allow that decision to be put in the hands of somebody else. That's my entire point, because it seems that every major decision that we should have been involved in since time immemorial, we have been cast out of. Those decisions are made before us, and mankind, we never get a chance to have a hand in those decisions. Some of the stuff we talked about last night when we read William Bramley's Gods of Eden, we discussed some of that. But that's exactly the case. Until we as a people, citizens of humanity, human beings, take the reins from the controllers and say, no more, we are now going to make our own decisions for what humankind is going to be. Until we do that, and even in small ways do that, they're still going to control us. So if you've never done it before and you never do it again, I implore you on this issue, when it comes to, whether or not we're going to be hit by radiation or something, I implore you, don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody. Listen to yourself. Listen to the person inside of you. Make a decision to act or not act on this, because it's the decision that you have made, not one that's been influenced by somebody else. Do it once. And I promise you, by doing it once, you'll notice everything will change for you immediately, because you've taken that power back. And if we do that on a microcosmic level, imagine what we could do at a macrocosmic level if we got more people around the world doing that just once. It'd be over for these clowns. It's baby steps, man. We start little, and then we dig bigger and bigger and bigger, and we build bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually we get there. But you can't walk if you don't crawl first, and at this point, we're not even crawling. Let's pull ourselves out of this and start making some decisions for ourselves. We're going to take a break, come back, and we're going to start reading from William Bramley's Gods of Eden again tonight. Looking forward to that. It's been really good reading. And so we'll be getting more into that here tonight on the show for you. Gonna play some tunes and come back. Stay with us. This is the Global Reality right here. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us here tonight for the late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. Hope you're staying up late and having some coffee or whatever else keeps you up and keeps you going here late night with us. We're officially getting Moonbatty. That's right. And so we're glad you could join us here. And the archive section is always updated there at the website, and you can always check there and get all the different shows. And we put up old shows there as well at my website, theglobalreality.com. That's www.theglobalreality.com. And that has everything for my work there at the website. And you can find all kinds of interesting things there, all my films, audio clips. We also have the chip in banner and the donate button. Those things are there to support our work and to allow our work to continue, because I get no outside income from anywhere else. And that's where this comes. Everything to do our work comes from this. And thanks so much to everybody out there who keeps us going, keeps us alive. And you guys have a stake in all of this, and that's a very powerful thing. So thank you so much, everybody. We don't have commercials, and I don't have advertising. I don't sell advertising time. Probably could, the shows as many listeners as we're getting now. But it's just like that's been the model for so long, and that I just, when I started this in December of 2009, I just wanted to start something that was to kind of show people that, look, you can move away from that. And I've noticed that. Thanks to you, the listeners out there. A friend of mine I hadn't seen in a while, I saw last week, asked me, she asked me 2 or 3 times in the span of one night. So how's the show going? Blah, this, that, and the other. And I guess she wasn't too happy with my response. And it wasn't that my response was bad. It's just that it's just oftentimes difficult for me to talk about the worth or how good what I'm doing is. You know what I mean? It's very hard for me to just go, oh, it's so awesome. Oh man, I am so great, man. Oh, so many people love me, and oh, you wouldn't believe it. It's almost like that's the the response that my friend was wanting, but it's like that's just not me. It's just like, even if that was the truth, I wouldn't say it. Do you know what I mean? That's just, that's who I am. So it's, it's very oftentimes hard to, put a gauge on that. But, I mean, personally, I think that, I think that it's, things are, things, I think they're really having an effect with this stuff. But anyway, it's, I think we have sort of affected some different networks out there. They seem to be kind of, a lot of different networks are trying to move away from the whole commercial thing and having advertisements all over their websites, since subsequently we started doing that way here. And that's really what I wanted to see was, you can, because I just for the longest time I saw either one of 2 things and I didn't see any alternative. So that's why I did my network in a different way. I saw people having networks and radio shows and having advertisements during their shows and commercial breaks and banner ads for their sponsors all over their website. As soon as you went there to get information, that's all you get hit with. I saw that. And then on the other side of that, I saw people bitching and pissing and moaning because of that. So, and it's been tough, I'll tell you. We have good times and bad times, and it's gotten a lot better over the past several months from the support of our listeners, everybody out there. But it was tough for a while because it seemed, at first people were all about it. And then after a while, it didn't seem like people were supporting us as much for a while. And, that's the whole thing is that that's kind of when I said, well, look, what do you want? Because it's like you either have to support a network one way or the other. But that's the whole thing is people, I don't know, that whole model of trying to sell stuff to people. I'm not going to participate in that. I don't even like selling my freaking DVDs, but the only reason I do sell them is so people can have actual hard copies of them. And have something physical to hand to people. It's the only reason I even make the DVDs, you know, because it's not like we make anything back on them ever at all, you know. But that's the whole thing there. So anyway, Chip and Banner donate button is at the website. Use that, act appropriately. We're going to get back into William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. I'm going to back up a little bit and read just the tail end of where we left off last night. So just to give us a context for what we're talking about here. As we have seen, early humans were reported to be a constant headache to their custodial masters. The slave creatures not only disobeyed their rulers, they often banded together and rebelled. Much as people, as I've talked about many times, much as people are now, and that's why we have such an instinct in us to not want to be enslaved. Because the custodians were not enslaved. They were princes. They were not people that were slaves to somebody else. So there's no way we could ever be. But that's why they had to scientifically create this mind-controlled conditioning enslavement system the way that they did. Because naturally, without that, we would not be able to have kept in, well, for no other better term than custodial rule for the eons that we have been. It's just, I mean, this is just huge information. I mean, this is just not really the information, but the revelation that comes to you when you think about that. You know, when you really understand it and understand that all the evidence points in that direction. It all makes sense to you. That's why there's been the propaganda. That's why there's been the programming. That's why there's been Madison Avenue. That's why there's been Edward Bernays. That's why there's been all of this. Because they have had to find a way to keep us tame and domesticate us so that we did not rise up against them, because it is not within our genetic makeup to be enslaved. Let me say that for you one more time, and I don't give a damn if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to yell it out. We were not meant to be enslaved. Period. Period. The slave creatures not only disobeyed their rulers, they often banded together and rebelled. This made human unity undesirable to Earth's custodial rulers. It was better that humans be disunited. One of the ways in which the problem of human unity was solved is described in the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, a tale which also has its roots in early Mesopotamian writings. According to the flood, this is what happened after the Great Flood. And the whole earth spoke one language and used the same words. And it came to pass, as they migrated from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, Babylonia, a region in Mesopotamia, and settled there. And they said, "Come on, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach the skies, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered all over the face of the earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the men were building. And the Lord said, "Look, the people are united, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will stop them from doing what they take in their minds to do." Well, that's pretty powerful, isn't it? I mean, this is from Genesis 11, folks. Look at them. They're banding together. You know, nothing will stop from, I mean, that's a threat to the gods. That's in Genesis. That's unbelievable. That's what I'm saying. If you really read the gene of Isis, the genealogy of Isis, you will understand that it's the greatest, you know, I mean, my God, anything on the Sci-Fi Channel couldn't top this. I mean, it's all aliens and genetic manipulation, all kinds of shit, all up and down 7 Ways to Sunday. You know, people that say that, you know, religion is a lie and what's in the Bible's a lie and all this stuff, you know, that's just not 100% true. It's not that what is in there is a lie. Many of this stuff come from events and records of events thousands of years before the Bible was written. We all know that. But it's the context. We don't have the context that they're giving us. And, you know, I can remember being a kid and asking some of these tougher questions, you know, when I'd hear people reading out of the Bible. I can just remember asking and just being treated like I was, you know, the biggest piece of shit for asking that question. You know, I got turned off from religion at a very, very early age. I don't know why. I always had this instinctive thing. I knew from a very early age religion was bullshit. I could smell it, man. I'm not kidding you. I don't know what kind of kid, I guess me at like 6 and 7 years old knows that religion is utter dog shit bullshit. I knew it was. Does that make me the demons? I mean, does that make me the Dark Lord, I guess, now? But I mean, really, I knew that shit was bullshit. And again, not so much, and now, you know, I know, because when I was a young, dumb teenager, for, you know, a while, I considered myself an atheist, which is the most retarded fucking thing on the face of the planet. My goodness. Oh, I'm an atheist. Yeah. I don't believe in shit. Yeah, buddy, well, you're just as controlled as the Christian is. Bet you don't know that either. But no, it's just that when you don't have the context for what it's talking about, it sounds like garbage to you, gobbledygook. It just, but once you gain the context, you go, oh my God, now I get it. Now I understand why they've tried to suggest, oh, this was something that it isn't. And again, it's not that what they're saying is bullshit. It's that the context that we have been given is what is bullshit. So let me continue here. Come on, let us go down and there and confuse their language so they cannot understand one another's speech. Well, that's a hell of a statement too there from Genesis. I mean, meddling gods. Let's go down and fuck with these motherfuckers. Fuck them. Shit. I'm about to go over and whoop their ass, drink their beer, smoke their weed, fuck their girls. I don't give a good goddamn. Let's go down there and fuck with them. Come on, let's go down there and confuse their language. Dumbass motherfuckers. Fucking humans. Think they gonna band together against us? Hell no. I mean, that's I mean, God, you read this and you're like, yeah. We are created by people who have contempt for us, and we wonder why our leaders and the elite and these people have contempt for us now. It's us against them, and it's always been us against them. And unless we realize that, folks, we're never going to get anywhere. We can have all the information in the world. It is us, those who were created and put here to be slaves, against them, those who were put in positions of power by those who created mankind as a slave race. That's what it is. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there all over the face of the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's exactly the phrase, and I've been looking for that for a while. I didn't realize it was Genesis 11:1-9. I've referenced that phrase a lot in my work and a lot on my show, and I reference it a lot when I talk to people individually, but sometimes I don't remember exactly where that came from, but that's it right there. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there all over the face of the earth. There is an exact phrase, I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's almost a word-for-word phrase from some of the Sumerian clay tablets that have been transcribed or have been, decoded and all this stuff from various individuals such as Zachariah Sitchin and others. But there's a verbatim phrase in the Sumerian text that say the Lord scattered them abroad, and that's where this supposedly why you had certain races in certain areas of the earth. It's because as they created more and more of these slaves, and that's where the whole idea of eugenics comes from. Is because the people in charge and the people that are running the eugenics operations are aware of this exact knowledge we're talking about. Again, as we talked about with the CMPers and the Secret Right, the IAAE, Institute for the Advancement of Ethnology and Eugenics in Edinburgh, Scotland, and the Pioneer Fund and all this eugenics stuff. I mean, it ties into the CMP and the priest class and the Vatican because they were withholding this exact information we're talking about. And that's where the whole thing of eugenics comes from. They believe that their ancestors created each successive race with more and more of their DNA, and they believe that they created what were Africans, black people, with the least amount. because that's what it talks about in the Sumerian text. They called them the dark heads. At least that's what the translation is. Dark heads. And then there was the Mongoloids, which were Asiatic races. And then on until they got up to the Caucasus Mountains region with the white-skinned people there, brought them down, gave them the most of their DNA, and deemed them the demigods and put them in positions of power. And this is where the succession of kings and queens and nobles to this day comes from, is that tracing of that bloodline back to those original demigods who were put in power. And guess what? They were fucking white. And you know who knows this shit the most? The fucking white power motherfuckers. That's who they know. You Stormfront, some of those skinhead white power, white nationalist websites, they'll have shit about, the Anunnaki and stuff over there all day long. Why do you think Hitler was in the Middle East? That's just what he was looking for, folks. This knowledge. This is the knowledge that can control the planet. So it's unbelievable to me that this was, because I know for a fact this was in the Sumerian text, and it's also in the book of Genesis, about him scattering the different ones all over the planet. That's how they have been dividing us and dividing us against each other since the dawn of time, since the dawn of man, since we were here and put on this earth, folks. Everything since the dawn of man. Oh my God. It's just unbelievable saying it and even understanding. It's been since day one to divide us. I said this over and over. Divide us, humanity, from each other, so we never come together and unite against them. And I don't give a damn if you want to call them Anunnaki or aliens or bankers or Jesuits or Jews or anything else. Because there's no question now who in the hell we are exactly talking about. It's just crazy. Unbelievable, man. I mean, this is important stuff. I hope a lot of people hear this. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel, because the Lord did there confuse the language of the entire earth. And from there did the Lord scatter them abroad over the face of the whole earth. Genesis 11:1-9. In the 12th planet, Mr. Sitchin offers an intriguing analysis of the Tower of Babel story. According to his research, the word name in the above passage, let us make a name for ourselves, was a translation of the ancient word Shem, S-H-E-M, Shem. I think Shem also means serpent or snake. I wonder if Bram will talk about that. Yeah, Shem actually it means serpent. It's like flying serpent, from what I understand. Thus why you have the caduceus and the, I talked about that last night, man, but I got to say it again. My God, seriously, what a smoking gun that is. That's my thing, Anybody doubts the Sumerians, I just point them right in the direction of that the caduceus, the winged serpent with the serpents intertwined around the staff, double helix DNA with the serpent iconography and the wings and mankind came from flying serpents that had genetic manipulation technology. There it is, in 6,000-year-old stone. The translation of the ancient word Shem, the Bible translation of Shem may be in error, says Mr. Sitchin, because Shem comes from the root word Shama, which means that which is highward, like shaman. Ancient Shems are the obelisk monuments that were so prevalent in many ancient societies. Those Shems, or obelisks, were copied after the rocket-shaped vehicles in which the custodial gods were said to have flown. Mr. Sitchin therefore believes that the word Shem in Mesopotamian text would be translated to quote-unquote sky vehicle. And that's one of that's one of those leaps. Like, he's right on with a lot of the stuff. That's a perfect example of Sitchin right there. It can be said where that may be true. It may very well be true. That's what they're talking about. Okay. I mean, we could entertain that for a moment and say, yes, okay, maybe that is what they're saying. Maybe they are saying sky vehicles, but we don't know for sure. But that's the kind of leap there where that Sitchin takes, and then you see what he doesn't point out, and that is, again, that the word Shem actually means serpent or a flying serpent. Well, that's what they had in Quetzalcoatl. What was the Mexican Jesus? He said he could walk on water, put no more messiahs before me, told the same lessons and stories. and he was called Quetzalcoatl, and he was the winged serpent, the flying serpent, which is more of what I understand Shem is meant. But see, Sitchin here says it's a sky vehicle. I'm seeing that more and more. I saw that a lot in that Ancient Alien show that was on History Channel. It seemed that anytime we might start getting into territory that may, talk about these winged serpents, automatically they always jump to that means a UFO, and it's like, well, again, that could be true, but that's just but one explanation. I think there's a very heavy disinformation operation going on right now that this show Ancient Aliens is very much a part of, to get people to believing that what is talked about in these ancient texts and things are ships or craft instead of actual creatures or beings or what would be considered the gods, the custodians. I think that's exactly what it is. Everything's a UFO. When you look at some of this footage that has been caught by NASA, the Story Musgrave footage, these sky serpent things, you guys have seen that stuff. It's on a lot of Chris Everard's films. See, I can't quantify that as a craft. I can't quantify that as a sky vehicle. That looks like an organic living thing to me. They move through space like water. It's just an amazing thing to watch. I can't call that a craft. It's like a sentient being. And so I think that's what the bigger agenda and the bigger operation is right now. Is there is a massive cover-up going on to not allow us to have knowledge of some of these things that we're being told are craft or, just like ships with aliens in them that are actually organic living things. But let's continue on here. With this translation placed in the above biblical passage, we find that the ancient Babylonians were not trying to make a name for themselves. They were trying to make a sky vehicle or a rocket. Now, okay, see, I can point out bullshit there too. So let me go ahead and do that. I've read that before too. I disagree 100% with that. I think there's an operation going on, man, where they want us to believe that everything is a UFO. Because there's something else they don't want us to know it exists, whether that's a spiritual entity or whatever have you. I don't know for sure. But that right there, let me read that again. It says that when this translation is placed in the above biblical passage, we find the ancient Babylonians were not trying to make a name for themselves. They were trying to make a sky vehicle or a rocket. The implication is that they wanted to match the technological might of their hated custodial masters and thereby put an end to their enslavement. Well, again, that's half true. What my understanding is what that meant is that the Babylonians were trying to make a name for themselves by figuring out how to themselves, based on the ancient knowledge that came out of the Babylonian mystery schools, the Babylonians were trying to make a name for themselves by taking the knowledge of the ancients and becoming gods themselves on earth over the people. Not trying to make a sky vehicle or a rocket or some other bullshit like that. That's what they want you to think. That's what Stitchin and Ancient Aliens and all that garbage is there to do. To get you to believe, and because that's why they tell you a lot of things that are plausible and good info. I was, blown away watching that shit going, my God, I was laughed off fucking radio 3 years ago for saying this. And they're saying it on the History Channel now. Literally, I got laughed off the air sometimes. People called me a kook and everything else because I would talk about these things. Now it's just, oh yeah, it's just everyday common knowledge. Blah, blah. And that's exactly, I think, what the whole battle of the human race has been about. Somebody's going to be, as it says here, the implications that they wanted, the Babylonians wanted to match the technological might of their hated custodial masters and thereby put an end to their enslavement. Well, that's exactly what Ea, or Enki, wanted to do when he set up the Brotherhood of the Serpent or the Brotherhood of the Snake, either one of those you want to call it. That was the original knowledge of the secret societies. That's what got hijacked and turned into the priesthood. You understand? that knowledge of how we could take the technological might that was used to create mankind and use that. That was Enki's gift to mankind because he had compassion for mankind. And his gift by setting up the Brotherhood of the Snake was to transfer to mankind in secret this knowledge that the gods had, the elite had, that created mankind, so that we could harness that technology and use it to defeat the evil bastards that wanted to create mankind and did create mankind as a slave race. And we've allowed ourselves to be programmed and conditioned and propagandized and dumbed down to the point where our greatest gift has now been hijacked by the same motherfuckers that created us and is being used to do us in. And we're sitting back every single day doing nothing about it and not telling anybody else about it. This is it, folks. This is the key to everything right here. What we're talking about right now. They are using it so they can break free, become gods themselves, leave us down here to perish, and then go on to conquer whatever they want to do in the universe. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Sounds like science fiction? Well, maybe you need to read about what the Hitler and the Nazis were doing. The same thing. This plan, this has been around for a long time. They were too high profile. Started to have too much power. Had to rope it back in and bring it back in under the control of the global entities. The destiny of mankind is to take this technology and to use it to defeat and conquer evil, not to propagate evil. And whether or not we as human beings turn that around is going to be the defining moment of whether or not we live or survive as a species. Period. I'm just blown away by that. Ancient stories and legends from other parts of the world indirectly support the Tower of Babel story. The Japanese people, Alaskan Eskimos, South Americans, and Egyptians all have traditions stating that their earliest forefathers had either been transported by human-like gods to where the modern descendants live today, or that those gods had been the source of the local languages or writing. It may be difficult to accept Mesopotamian biblical statements that ancient human society had been split apart thousands of years ago in a divide and conquer effort by flying extraterrestrials. My God, the same fucking people, their ilk, are running divide and conquer on us today. That's why Alex Jones and people like him are such a threat, because they're working on behalf of these custodian people. It's just so apparent to me now. I can't deny it anymore. If you don't like my show anymore because that's my standpoint, then goddamn it, turn it off. But I'm telling you right now, folks, that is it. It explains it all. And it explains why these people like Alex Jones and others have told you for years that this type of information is a distraction, because this is what their controllers are hiding. Even though the divide and conquer technique is frequently used by military and political leaders on Earth during wartime, interestingly, using the technique was advanced a number of years ago by a distinguished Yale professor. Imagine that, skull and bones. If Earth should ever colonize other planets, the good professor suggested that Earth could control another inhabited planet by pitting one native group against another. My God, and they just continue to do it. And that's what all this is about. And that's what all this patriot gobbledygook nonsense about armed conflict and all this shit has always been about. And this other horse shit, Turner Diaries, race war bullshit. That's what it's all been about. It's the same people perpetrating it. Can't you see? If we compare ancient and modern ideas about how mankind came into existence, we find two very different versions. The ancient version is that an extraterrestrial society had come to possess Earth and sought to exploit the planet's resources. To make the exploitation easier, a work race was created, Homo sapiens. Humans were treated as livestock and were frequently butchered when they became too numerous or troublesome. To preserve Homo sapiens as a slave race and to prevent future rebellion, spiritual knowledge was repressed. Human beings were scattered geographically into different linguistic groups, and conditions were created to make physical survival on Earth an all-consuming chore from birth until death. I can't say it. My God, is that not the answer to your question you've had your whole life? Is that all there is? My whole life is just survival from cradle to the grave, and that's it, and that's all my life is? No. Only someone that would see you as a threat would put that into your head. And we generationally pass it down to our kids and our grandkids, folks. It stops here. Created to make physical survival on Earth an all-consuming chore from birth to death. This arrangement was to be maintained indefinitely or as long as the custodial society possessed Earth. In contrast, the modern view is that human beings had evolved accidentally from star stuff into slime, into fishes, into monkeys, and finally into people. The modern view actually seems more fanciful than the ancient one. Here. In the story of Adam and Eve, we noted the appearance of a snake. The serpent was said to be God's enemy, Satan, who had literally transformed himself into a reptile, a shapeshifter. The Bible suggests that snakes are feared and disliked today because of Satan's alleged transformation back into the Garden of Eden. However, it should be remembered that the biblical Adam and Eve story is entirely symbolic. The snake, too, was a symbol, not an actual reptile, and I say that was probably up for contention as well. At this point, I don't know. We can just say it was symbolic. I don't know. But maybe so. Who knows? To determine what the biblical snake represented, we must go back once again to older pre-biblical sources. When we do so, we discover that the snake symbol had two very important meanings in the ancient world. It was associated with the custodial god Ea, reputed creator and benefactor of mankind, and it was also represented as an influential organization with which Ea was associated. And we all know what that influential organization was called: the Brotherhood of the Snake. And the Brotherhood of the Snake is, of course, the title of Chapter 5 of William Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden. We will pick up there tomorrow on the broadcast. Heavy show tonight. 2 nights of heavy radio here for you. Last night and tonight so far this week. Boy, oh boy. They either create these earthquakes or they know about them. They force them to happen. And, we allow ourselves to be steered. But you know what? We still have a job to do, folks. We still have a lot more information to be had. Let's not get sidetracked. We are so close. So close. Please support our work if you can. Donate button is there for larger amounts for the films to help us grow. We have the chip and banner there for the bills for the month. Help us keep forward, folks. Thank you so much to everybody who has donated. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow for the show. My name is Josh Reeves. Take care.